Get smart, Northeast Ohio, and plan a regional tax-based sharing network. Number 3, finally, in the state, the third play of the triple play, if Unigov and tax-based sharing are 2 plays in the play, the third is working with the state. And I think it's asking, why has planning from a state standpoint been so anathema, literally, in the state of Ohio? Here come the planners. Here come the planners. Here come the engineers. What are they talking about? Why aren't we just throwing out project after project after project? Why do we need a framework? Well, when it comes to state support for planning, the absence of planning as the alternative hasn't turned out to be too pretty. When will the state adopt a smart growth code, as now exists in so many states across the country, most successfully demonstrated in the state of Maryland? You know the story of Maryland. Developer comes along in a cornfield, says, I want it all. The region says back, you build your roads, you build your sewers, you build your schools. Until we've built back here and built out this community, we won't build out there. It's worked in Maryland. But unless I'm mistaken, or unless he or she has been buried under paperwork downstate, there is no state planning director, no Department of Planning in the state of Ohio. There should be. Otherwise, today's front page headline of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, if you looked at it, might not be asking what to do about Ohio's big budget shortfall. And a state legislator applying his best nonsensical response, which was, and I quote, all options are awful, as he's talking about the state budget and the inability to balance. And all I can say at this point is I don't think any options can be eliminated. We just have to keep all options on the table. I don't know if you read that, but what I could guess in summary is that everything on the table that comes to the budget is awful. Consolidated metropolitan government, regional tax-based sharing, and a smart growth agenda, that's the triple play. I don't really think you can do one without the other. You do it in one county and you don't look at multi-county cooperation, you don't get anywhere. You look at multi-county cooperation in Northeast Ohio and you don't look at it anywhere else in the state, you don't get anywhere. You have to do them all together. Had we exercised that play yesterday, that poor state legislator may not have felt he was looking down the barrel of a gun when he looked at the state's budget decisions today. So as we focus on planning infrastructure investment in a perilous time, don't lose sight of what we didn't do that got us to where we are in the first place. Nationally, statewide, and in Northeast Ohio, we made our bed, we sprawled, and now we lie rather uncomfortably in it. I am convinced that a group like this and a forum we are in today has the power to do something about our situation in Northeast Ohio. We could gain economic economy of scale through unification, we could stop the zero-sum game through tax-based sharing, and we could get smart as a state about city and rural preservation through smart growth legislation. Those would be 3 big moves. In the category of what we are doing right, I am, as you know, more an optimist than the pessimist that you may have just heard from, but I don't think that's pessimism. I actually think it's just good strategy. But some of the things that we've done right, and cases we ought to point to, are these. ODOT, under our new director, Ronayne has reopened the doors to multimodalism. I don't even know you, Director, but I'm enjoying talking to you later today, but you've done it. Kudos to you and the governor for pushing commuter rail through the legislature. The Cleveland-Columbus-Cincinnati link is more than just a way for legislators to catch up on some sleep. That's the cynicism that was so pervasive about that issue. If you ask Case Western Reserve University faculty members in my neighborhood of University Circle, they'll talk to you about the important knowledge corridor that is between Cleveland and Columbus. It's also an important link for the tens of thousands of students who travel to and from their home university and their home in Northeast Ohio several times a year. Finally, it lays, and probably most importantly, the track for future high-speed rail. Ohio, as a proverbial would-be, could-be, should-be X on the National Transportation Network, would have been foolish to have let ourselves get bypassed, while Senator Durbin lays the groundwork 2 states to the west for Illinois to be the sole and preeminent X on that network. So it is great to see ODOT going multimodal under their new leader. It's my hope that the same spirit will be applied for airports and waterports as well. Speaking of water, second good thing we're working on in the state of Ohio is our strategic participation in the dialogues of the Great Lakes Basin over clean, fresh water. You are all now familiar with the volume statistics on what this represents to our nation and to the globe. 20% of the world's fresh surface water, 90% of North America's fresh surface water is right outside our front door. It's especially important when you think of water quality and how serious it is when it is the leading cause of illness and death in children under 5 years old across the globe. It's exciting to see Ohio take a serious look not just at water quality but at the issue of diversion. We know the population is migrating south and west. What we don't know is whether a nation will someday have the spine to say, you've sprawled beyond your sustainable limits. Come back. Live where nature intended you to live. The national response will first, I think, look to the Great Lakes for a leading response. And we ought to brace ourselves for that. It already happened in the last presidential campaign. You heard candidate McCain talk about pipelines to Arizona. We'll see what now President Obama says about that, but we ought to be front and center in that dialogue. I think we're going in the right direction. The state of Ohio is a part of a multi-state consortium that is about preservation and taking serious looks at diversion issues. I also think that we should continue to support clean infrastructure technology as it relates to our Great Lakes, with the elimination of CSOs to the best we can, to greener ports, and to dealing with stormwater runoff. That's the work of NOACA in many of its divisions and departments. Another area I think we seem to be progressing positively on, policy-wise, is a notion of regional centers of excellence, anchored by knowledge center universities. If in Ohio, its forest is to the southeast, if we have farmland to the southwest, alternative energy, and particularly wind in the northwest, and bioscience back home, by the way, each carries its own bit of the other as well, but those dominant economic drivers in those regional areas around the state, higher education strategy coming out of the Chancellor's office seems to be planning to suit that. Planning centers of excellence in the universities around regional economic propositions where they make sense. If there's an upside to Governor Jim Rhodes's university and community college within 30 miles of every Ohio household, it is the fact that we now have a knowledge center within reach of everyone in the state of Ohio. Today we have the opportunity to capitalize on that. Multimodalism, fresh water, and university knowledge centers are smart strategies that Ohio is right to capitalize on. Unquestionably, Ohio's economy can and is changing toward a knowledge economy. In cities across the country, the strong presence of university and healthcare institutions, the institutions that didn't fly the urban nest 30 years ago when other birds were flying, have the real power to revitalize their host cities and the neighborhoods around them. You look around the country, today's largest employer in the city of Philadelphia is the University of Pennsylvania. Going local, this is a strategy we are employing in University Circle, leveraging these anchors to revitalize city areas. From our little perch 1 square mile of University Circle, look at the picture today. Today, the Cleveland Clinic represents 1 in every 10 payroll dollars paid to the city of Cleveland. My suspicion is in your counties around Northeast Ohio, if you have a clinic or university hospitals in your area, it's also quite a bit of payroll in your neighborhood. The clinic and UH are Cleveland's #1 and 2 largest employers, respectively, and the state's #2 and 4 largest employers. That world has changed dramatically. 30 years ago, and I look back at an article that Sharon Broussard did from the Plain Dealer in retrospective about the largest employers in the 1970s in Center City, Cleveland, and the largest employers today. Cleveland Clinic and University Hospitals didn't make the top 10 30 years ago. We have unquestionably moved in part from a heavy manufacturing city to one that manufactures healthcare and related medical products. Where we once manufactured large machinery, we now manufacture precision instruments for the medical industry. We have the opportunity through workforce training to retool these industries with existing workforce, and we should also welcome newcomers along the way. That's not to the mutual exclusion, by the way, of heavy manufacturing. It's just that we're manufacturing things smaller in mass and with precision and to our industries that are working for us. Project-wise, the very fact that the eds and meds economy is growingly the lifeblood of our community, the case for support for the Opportunity Corridor is clear. In fact, it's a poster project for urban reinvestment. While it will take more than $300 million to build its several hundred acres of redevelopment opportunity between I-490 and East 105th Street, our BioStrand and our major employment center. We're the only major employment center in University Circle without a direct route to the interstate. So I appreciate those of you who supported the Opportunity Corridor when we looked at resources being thin, because it's not just for the city of Cleveland, it's for this entire region to feed the lifeblood of the new economy in Northeast Ohio. We bring in more than 2.5 million visitors, patients, students, and faculty to our Eds, Meds, and Arts District every year. We bring you. In these perilous economic times, University Circle is doing what you are all doing. We are targeting our investments and focusing on new, transformative projects that can help pull us out of the economy we are in.